Lightning shivered along the carbon nanotube spine of Elevator 3 as Lieutenant Mara Voss stepped from the pressure lock onto the skim platform, 40,000 kilometers above the broiling clouds of Jupiter. Even in the suit's muffling, she could feel the elevator pulsing, an ocean liner cable bowstringing between Helios Station's orbital ring and the counterweight far beyond synchronous orbit. A space elevator was supposed to be serene, a tether balanced between gravity and centrifugal fling. Tonight, it was an unsheathed whip. Below her, Helios Station's toroidal docks were ablaze with railgun strobes and engine flares. Above, in the hard black, the scarlet running lights of 3 Canthari League carriers prowled like deep-sea hunters. The League Admiralty had convinced itself that Helios, only 3 years old, was the Jovian Confederacy's soft underbelly. Capture the station, claim the mining lasers, threaten the fusion yards. Jove would bargain. What the League hadn't guessed was the Ringguard's contingency. To turn the very elevators meant for cargo into relativistic slings. Mara toggled the squad channel. Sword team, sound off. Bravo ready. Chisel in position. Forge green. Their call signs flickered on her HUD, color-coded along the ring array. 4 detachments, each tasked with weaponizing one of the 8 elevators. They had rehearsed the procedure in sims, never in real steel. Break the tether loose from its anchor locks, redirect its tension with vernier thrusters, then time a release, so that the elevator's counterweight, 10 million tons of regolith, would rip past at orbital velocity, wrap around an enemy hull, and hurl both mass and target on a gravity-assisted plunge into the sun. To the League, it would look like a miracle of misfortune. To the Ringguard, it would be a last resort-made doctrine. A new voice stitched into the circuit, crisp, theatrical, Commander Felix Rowe, Master of Orbitals. Elevator 3's locks are reading amber, Lieutenant. Confirm magnetical override. Working it, Mara replied. She knelt, magnetic boots clacking, and slid her arm into the manual console. The field engineers had removed 3 interlocks already. All that remained was the final explosive bolt. She armed it but left the charge unlit. The script demanded perfect timing. She scanned the dark. Elevator cables glinted, each a chord in an invisible harp drummed by starlight. But the League carriers were coming closer, venting ion haze, Tetspuru, Narsing, and Jwalamukhi. Names that promised flame. Dropships peeled away from their bays, arrowing toward Helios's civilian habitats. The station's defense guns clawed at them, but the carrier's particle shields diffused the worst. Priority feed, Roa announced. Tespor vectoring toward Elevator 3. She'll try a tether cut. Mara forced her breathing slow. She was at the fulcrum. Lose her tether, and the Ringguard lost the sunshot. Sword team, on my mark, trigger phase 2. Beside her, Sergeant Yossi Benton planted demolition charges along the cable's brace. You ever thought, he said, voice private on the sub-channel, we'd spend a war blowing up the things we built to end the last war? Progress, Mara muttered. Tespur's silhouette swelled, a kilometer of armored hull. Her forward bays open plasma saws meant to sever the tether. The League knew the elevators mattered, even if they didn't know why. Helios Station fired a broadside. Blue-white spears of accelerated tungsten raked Tespur's shields, cascading sparks, but not lethal. The carrier pressed on. 10 seconds, Raoul warned. Mara primed the detonator. Her suit's chronometer dripped milliseconds like acid. 9. She felt the elevator cable hum. The counterweight above had begun to swing out of geosync, mass drawn into a rising arc by the initial thruster nudges. The cable wanted to straighten, to dance. 3. Now, she shouted. Benton slapped the trigger. Explosive bolts cracked, deafening even through suit dampers. Elevator 3's anchor collar bloomed open. Freed from its moorings, the tether snapped westward, taut as vengeance. Mara's harness yo-yoed, then inertial compensators caught her. Tespur was close enough that Mara could see crew figures behind observation blister glass. The cable's free end whipped across the void. It clipped Tespur's prow, fusing instantly against the ablative plate. The carrier bucked, engines fighting to yaw away, but the tether had momentum and mass beyond any thruster's rebuttal. Counterweight and carrier became ends of a cosmic bola. The cables cinched, spiraling around Tezper's midriff until magnetic clamps on the elevator car hammered shut like jaws. Tezper was lassoed. Mara braced. Sword team, release car clamps, full spool. They obeyed. Motors disengaged. The carrier and counterweight accelerated, tether shortening as slack devoured itself. Gravity, once Tezper's ally, betrayed her. As the mass hurtled sunward, centrifugal force completed the sling. In 20 minutes, the carrier would pass Jupiter's inner hill sphere. In 2 hours, she would intersect the solar current. Her crew might still be alive when the hull ionized. Roa's voice hushed, reverent. Target Persper, confirmed. Outbound on solar trajectory. Mara watched the icons. One red contact winked out of Jovian space. Satisfaction felt thin. There were 2 more carriers. She remagnetized her boots to the still vibrating platform. The elevator car, now empty, dangled like a severed stinger. She routed power to the maintenance thrusters and nudged the platform into a safety orbit around the ring. There would be no second use for this tether. Its destruction was part of the bargain. Sword team clear, she reported. Moving to assist elevator 5. Negative, Roa countered. Station sensors show Narsing deploying surface teams. They've punctured Habitat D. Lieutenant, I need ground support. Habitat D Egdones with 500 civilians. Transit from the ring to Station Hub took 6 minutes by microshuttle. The cabins smelled of scorched polymer, evidence of previous skirmishes. Benton sat across from Mara, visor lifted, skin chalky. We toss one ship into the sun and they still come, he said. They don't know yet, Mara replied. When the next disappears, maybe they'll reconsider. Downport, they emerged into Helios's central spindle, gravity-free. Smoke streamed through the corridors like slow ink. Alarm klaxons warbled. Marines from Chisel Team were already here, exchanging fire with League boarders in exosuits patterned with crimson stripes. Mara counted casualties. Too many. She quick-patched her rifle to station telemetry. Friend, foe tags blossomed. Breach point? She asked the nearest medic. Dock 6. They cut through the bulkhead. Mara thumbed her rifle's chamber, then kicked off the deck toward the flicker of muzzle flashes. The fight was vicious, close. League troopers used magnetic grapples to reel themselves across open spans. Mara's squad, raised in Jupiter's heavy gravity, leveraged mass to intercept, punting enemies into bulkheads with bone-cracking momentum. She toggled to lethal. No room for mercy when an airlock spill would flash freeze everyone in hull water. At the far end of Dock 6 gleamed the intruder's boarding spike. An armored lance stabbed through Helios's skin, still hot at the edges. At first, beyond the spike's throat lay Narsing, probably preheating her engines. If Mara could pry the spike loose, she might deny the carrier reinforcement and open a new path for sabotage. She made the decision mid-breath. Benton, with me. They soared inside, weaving past tangles of conduits. Gravity transitioned to spin G, a subtle tug as Dock 6's rim rotated. The boarding spike was bigger up close, plated with ceramic ablation layers. Cutting charges wouldn't work. The hull metal would bleed heat. The breach would vent the dock. An idea surfaced. Improbable. Dangerous. We decouple the dock's docking collar, Mara said. We let the entire spike fall away. Benton whistled. Station'll lose 1/6 its volume. Better than losing all of it. They found the collar's mechanical panel. Manual release rods glared red, warning tags fluttering. Benton hesitated a heartbeat, then wrenched one free. Hydraulic screams echoed as locking teeth withdrew. The spike groaned. League troopers on the other side must have felt the shift. Gunfire intensified. Bullets ricocheted off the collar housing. Mara ducked, shoved the second rod home. The collar flowered open. Atmospheric gust roared, aerosolizing blood and debris. Automatic blast doors slammed down, sealing Dock 6. The boarding spike, no longer embraced, drifted. then catapulted backward as Narsing's tethering thrusters overcompensated. The spike tumbled, carrying half a dozen League soldiers with it, silent, ragdolling. Mara pinged Roa. Dock 6 clear, spike detached. Can we still access Elevator 5? Tether intact, he answered. But we've lost Chisel Team lead. Then I'll take command. Elevator 5 hung over Helios's night side, a glimmer against Jupiter's auroras. Mara and Benton commandeered a tug skiff, patch-welded from maintenance pods. The station's rotating bays spat them into vacuum. As they approached, they glimpsed Elevator 5's counterweight, Ilithia still locked, luminous from thermal bleed. The League carrier Jwalamukhi hovered nearby, evidently cautious after Tesper's disappearance. Yet the carrier maintained bombardment position, launching drones to strafe the ring's OST panels. I don't think they suspect the tethers, Benton said. No, Mara murmured. But they're learning fear. They magnetized to the elevator's service ring. Status lights were sign-waving amber. Chisel Team had partially sequenced the release before falling. Mara sifted through log files. Explosive bolts armed, but safeties engaged. Counterweight thrusters queued for 0.9 G burn. All she needed was a living hand to authorize. She set a 10-minute delay. That would give them time to evacuate. Back to the skiff, she ordered. But as they launched, plasma bolts riddled their path. A drone wing had detected movement. The skiff's hull flared. Control jets shredded. Mara's seatbelt ripped. She spiraled out, suit jets firing reflexively. Benton's pod tumbled separately, venting sparks. Yossi. I'm hit, he said through static. Jets compromised. Mara glimpsed his suit, thrusters flickering. Distance, 82 meters and opening. He could reach him, but then neither would have escape Delta. She weighed the scenario. 10 minutes to detonation. Carrier Jwalamukhi was adjusting vector, perhaps preparing to sever the tether. Failure would nullify everything. Mara, Benton said, calm. Go. Finish it. She wanted to scream orders at physics itself, but discipline anchored her. Find a thruster pack, she told him. Ping me in 2. She rotated toward a maintenance turret jutting from ring infrastructure, collided, grunted. The hull wrinkled her ribs. She latched, hacked into turret gyros, realigned cannons at the pursuing drones. Triggered bursts. Ion cores popped like glass globes. 2 drones disintegrated. 4 more contorted away. Suit timer, 7:42. She kicked back into open drift, aligning with an inspector rail that skirted Elevator 5's mount. Emotion threatened to bruise bones. She'd removed inertial dampening modules to gain suit power. She shoved through vacuum, counting heartbeats. At last she reached the tether console, a skeletal pier of carbon truss. Override authorized. Detonation countdown resumed. Visible ticks. 5 o'clock. Mara, Benton's voice flooded. Got a spare bottle. Jets regain partial closing. Relief fractured her focus. I'm heading topside. We still need vantage. She sprinted along the truss, leaps spanning meters. Jupiter's disk filled half the sky, a swirling titan. Below, Helios station burned but remained afloat. Counterweight thrusters ignited first. Bright arcs. Elevator 5 groaned, braces detaching sequentially. She could almost taste the torrent of stored tension. Jwalamukhi reacted, spewing interceptor flak at the tether. Hot shards carved sinuous tracers, but the cable, annealed for gigatascal stresses, shrugged sparks like dragon scales. Mara, I see the carrier pivoting, Roa said. 5 degrees starboard, they'll try to outrun. Which leaves their stern to the cable, she realized. Perfect. At 1:30, Benton docked beside her, panting. Brought you a souvenir, he said, waving an underslung grappler. We might need it. She pointed to the cable's free end, coiling through blackness. Jwalamukhi's captain must have detected something novel then. The traction of 1,000,000 tons pulling at her aft quarter. The carrier's engines bellowed, saturating comms with RF noise. The tether tightened, welding itself by friction onto hull strakes. Mara could see hull plates buckle. Release car clamps, she commanded. Benton keyed the sequence. Magnetic teeth disengaged. Elevator car dropped away, mass focusing into the sling arc. Jawalamuki yowed, nose veering sunward as if by divine rudder. Crew distress calls scattered across open channels. The carrier's plasma shields faltered under the asymmetric torque. Acceleration spiked. Through suit telemetry, Mara tracked Jawalamuki's vector climbing beyond escape velocity. She whispered a farewell none of them would hear. Somewhere behind, Elevator 5's lower half tore free. Thousands of kilometers of ribbons scattering like glowing confetti. Kinetic shrapnel pierced League drones, igniting them as incidental fireworks. "Target Jawalamuki on solar trajectory," Roa confirmed, voice trembling, half exultation, half horror. 2 carriers down. Only Narsing remained, but her boarding spike gone, her air wing expended. Perhaps she had already computed the outcomes. Helios Station's medical base stank of ozone and patched skin. Mara sat on a gurney, wrists hooked to IV leads. Across from her, Benton nursed a cauterized leg. Hospital gravity was gentle, 1/3 GG. Commander Roa arrived, uniform singed. "I've spoken with Confederacy High Council." His grin was ragged. Narsing transmitted a retreat burn. Siege lifted. Mara allowed herself a breath. "We still lost Chisel's lead and half of Forge." "They'll be honored." Roa's tone softened. "But your actions saved 30,000 souls. You turned elevators into weapons. Never thought I'd write those words in an after-action." Mara's gaze drifted to an observation port. 2 tethers now dangled severed, sparkling crystals where sunlight struck frayed fibers. Far along their projected paths, hollow shapes, once warships, would be surrendering to the sun's inexorable pull. "I used to watch cargo containers ride those elevators," she said. "Neat, safe, boring. I liked that. Maybe we'll rebuild, keep them peaceful." "Until the next siege," Benton muttered. "Let's hope not," Mara answered, though hope felt slim. They held memorial rites within the Arboretum, the only place still smelling of soil. Names of the fallen scrolled across transparent screens while leaves, genetically sculpted to mimic Earth's oaks, trembled in circulated air. The chaplain spoke of arcs and circles. How every tether once broken eventually finds a new anchor in memory. Later, Mara stood alone at the viewport. A comet tail of dust trailed along Elevator 5's demolition field, reflecting solar lambency. She imagined Tezper and Jawalamuki now. Silent, boiling gradually, hulls softening, crews distancing from consciousness under heat torpor, until stars feasted on them. She didn't delight in their destruction, but neither did she regret wielding the sling. Footsteps approached Roa. "There's talk of commending you to captain." She shook her head. "I'd rather fix the elevators." He chuckled. "You might get both." They watched a maintenance crawler inch along remaining tethers, inspecting microfractures. The Ringguard would have to decide, lower them for salvage or keep them, even weaponize officially, security by potential annihilation. Mara wondered if the station could remain a birthplace of science once it held a loaded gun in every hand. "Did the Council consider the optics?" she asked. "They'll classify the method. Public line is that enemy vessels suffered catastrophic reactor faults." Mara smirked. "Space elevators yanked them past orbital mechanicsm fault." Roa folded arms. "Truth or not, the League will think twice before challenging us again." Mara wasn't so sure. Fear begets ambition, yet she also recalled the moment Tezper vanished from sensors. No enemy strategist could ignore that curtain of non-existence. The sun swallowed hubris. "Any word on upgrades?" she queried. "We'll reinforce anchor collars, add variable mass counterweights, but the big change is automated detachment, no EVA required. Essentially your trick, but button pushed." "Good," she exhaled. "Because next time, I'd like to watch from a safe room." Roa laughed. "I'll arrange a seat." Weeks passed. Repair crews patched hulls, flushed radiation pockets. Helios Station resumed shipments. From Ganymede came convoys laden with ice. From Callisto, ore. Europa sent scientists hungry for data again. The elevators, some shortened, some spliced, regrew like wounded tendons. Across the ring, service lights twinkled. Mara joined the reconstruction, suiting daily, supervising annealing torches that fused new carbon strands into the grand cable. It felt like knitting stars. One shift she discovered a scorched groove along the inner truss, evidence of Jwalamukhi's flak. Touching it, she felt history rough beneath gloves. She left the scar unpolished, a reminder. On off-duty nights, she and Benton floated in the observation cupola. They played chess on magnetic pieces that clung to the viewport glass, Jovian storms swirling behind the ponds. Conversations drifted. Why had the League risked open war? What deterrence truly meant? Occasionally, silence said more. "You think they'll build elevators around Earth?" Benton asked once. "Too much politics," Mara replied. "But if they did, maybe we'd sling our own monsters away. Or ourselves, if planet got too crowded." He nodded, pieces forgotten. "Strange universe," he said. 6 months after the siege, Helios held a rededication ceremony. Platform flags unfurled. Civilian children born on the station sang anthem chords that echoed 100 decades of spacefarer hymns. Mara stood in uniform, medals not yet tarnished, as solar light poured through the dome. The director praised courage, resilience, innovation when he cited the decisive repurposing of ring infrastructure by Lieutenant Voss. Applause filled the hall. Cameras zeroed on her, but she felt distant, thinking of carbon threads snapping in night, of men and women inside carriers tilting helpless toward fire. After the speech, reporters crowded. "Is the ring still dangerous?" one asked. "Only to those who attack us," she answered. Another, "Would you use the elevators as weapons again?" She paused. "If forced." Simple, honest. Later, she returned to Elevator 3's platform, now rechristened Endeavour Spoke Alpha. The old tether was gone. Engineers had replaced it with a fresh ribbon, glossy, unmarred. At her feet a plaque read, "In memory of those who guarded our orbit and traveled beyond." Mara touched the metal, then stepped to the edge. Below, Jupiter rolled, stripes mingling with storms. Above, the counterweight shone faint, sentinel against the sun. She remembered the lurch of release, the cable singing a war cry older than planets. She recalled fear, duty, triumph, tangled. A quiet voice bust her calm. "Benton, up for a cargo run tomorrow?" "Always," she said. She lingered a final moment on the brink, the boundary between creation and destruction. Elevators could ferry seeds or sling spears. The choice, she knew, was not in the cables, but in the hands that gripped the detonators. Marva turned away, heading back toward the lift. Life, like orbit, required constant adjustment. Small thrusts, patient corrections, faith that falling could also mean staying aloft. She resolved then that her next mastery would not be how to lasso warships, but how to keep the tether safely humming, a bridge instead of a whip. Yet in a quiet compartment of memory, she kept the equations, the timings, the perfect burn arcs. Because the universe was wide, and peace, like a space elevator, survived only by balance, half gravity, half centrifugal desire to break free. And, should the scales tip again, the Jovian Ringguard would know how to answer, with cables bright as sunrise, flinging darkness back into the star that forged them all.